Okay, I think we can get started slowly. So hi everyone, thanks everybody for coming once again to our seminar series. In this series, we've been kind of jumping from topic to topic to give you a broad overview of different AI safety areas. We first heard about different surprising emergent behaviors in LLMs. Then we learned about unlearning. 2 weeks ago, we dove into mechanistic interpretability. And today is no exception, because today we're going to hear about yet another topic, which is in fact a topic that didn't really exist 12 months ago or so, which shows you how insanely fast progress in AI has been. So on this note, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you today's speaker. Tomek Korbak is a member of technical staff on OpenAI's safety oversight team, where he works on safety and security measures for LLM agents. Previously, he was also at the UKAC, the AI Security Institute, where he worked on safety cases and AI control. Prior to that, he completed his PhD at the University of Sussex in the UK. And prior to that, he studied cognitive science, philosophy, and physics at the University of Warsaw, which is obviously in Poland. So today, Tomek is going to tell us about chain of thought monitorability, a new and fragile opportunity for AI safety. Thanks very much, Tomek. Please go ahead.
Hi, hello guys. Thanks, Jakub, for having me. It is a pleasure and an honor to be able to speak to this audience. Without further ado, let me start. Hi, I'm Tomek, and I will try to argue that chain of thought monitoring is a promising approach to mitigating misalignment risk. But let me start with a story. So 10 years ago, at the dawn of deep learning, we imagined AI agents to be those opaque neural networks representing reasoning in those uninterpretable vector spaces. And in that world, we would only be able to supervise and evaluate those agents based on their behavior, but we would have no insight into their cognition, plans, and goals. But we were lucky. We somehow ended up with models pre-trained to understand natural language and post-trained to reason in natural language before taking actions. And I just wanted to highlight that this was very far from obvious, that this is going to be the path to general purpose AI agents. And this offers a unique opportunity for AI safety, and we should seize it by doing chain of thought monitoring. So what do I mean by chain of thought monitoring? I mean any automated system that reads the chain of thought reasoning trace of an agent and flags any potentially harmful interactions. And by harmful interactions, I mean things like reward hacking or exploiting flaws in specification of desired behavior, intentionally introducing flaws in produced software or other kind of artifacts, falling prey of prompt injections or malicious instructions embedded in trusted data, and strategically underperforming in evaluations. A fun thing about this slide is that those texts in those bubble boxes are actual quotes from actual reasoning models doing things. So the idea is that if a model is about to reward hack, it's going to tell you in COT that it's about to reward hack, and we can read it, and we can suspend it. So in practice, it's not that simple. We know that COT is not always faithful, but it might be faithful enough in cases we care about. And there are two main reasons why COT might be monitorable. The first one is that agents will need to externalize their plans to complete difficult tasks. The second is that regardless of this necessity, agents will have a tendency to externalize. Let me focus on the first one first. So the more specific claim I want to make is that for sufficiently difficult tasks, transformers must use legible chain of thought as a form of working memory. This claim is conditional on tasks being difficult enough that agents can only complete them as far as they are using COT. It's also, and indeed, some recent research by Meter and Google DeepMind suggested that COT faithfulness reliably increases with task difficulty. I'm not going to discuss those plots in detail. I just want to leave them as pointers to this claim that COT tends to be faithful when it's actually needed. And yeah, I sometimes feel that the case for COT unfaithfulness is overstated because researchers focus too much on tasks that models would have also solved without COT. And then models can get away with COT being just performative. Whereas if they would actually need COT to complete the task, they would be forced to pack all the necessary information into the COT. Coming back to the claim is also specific to transformers. And one of those serendipitous things about transformers is that compared to some other architectures, they are inherently limited in the amount of serial computation that can happen in a single forward pass. So if you visualize information flow through a transformer, activations from upper layers can only be fed back into lower layers when mediated by visible discrete tokens. So in this diagram, those red dots represent activations, and the information can only flow between them while passing through those gray rectangles that indicate tokens. So here the broad idea is that transformers are inherently limited in the amount of serial information processing they can do. So for sufficiently complex computations, they will have to pass through visible discrete tokens, and then we can observe them, and we can have some insight into this computation. So that was the first reason that COT would be necessary for sufficiently difficult tasks. The second reason is that agents will have a tendency to externalize their plans. And you kind of already see that. Agents just have a strong propensity to yap in COT about everything. Even if you explicitly instruct them to suppress something from a COT, for example, to not use a certain word, they will often be unable to do so. Like if you ask them to not think about a pink elephant, they will do a long COT about not thinking about a pink elephant. My math scholar, Sean Chen, is now leading a project investigating the extent to which this inability holds across different models. So COT of current frontier models are often quite manageable, but this state of affairs might not hold indefinitely, and there are 4 main reasons why. The first one is that over the course of high compute post-training, chain of thought might naturally drift from legible English. We already see signs of reasoning models using words in an idiosyncratic way, but it's unclear to what extent it hampers our ability to monitor them. We might also lose monitorability if we optimize COTs to look nice. Recent work by my OpenAI colleague Bowen Baker has shown how using COT monitors as reward models during training decreases COT monitorability dramatically. And even if we don't show COTs to reward models, they can still be subject to some indirect optimization pressure. And it's unclear to what extent this hurts monitorability at scale. And finally, frontier AI can just move altogether to different architectures that don't do it explicit COT. And now, what should we do about this? Most policy interventions preserving COT monitorability have trade-offs that are hard to navigate. But here are two ideas that seem to be lacking any downsides, namely developing measures for monitorability and using those measures in training and deployment decisions. So to sum up, I tried to argue that COT monitoring is a promising approach to mitigating misalignment risk. But this opportunity is fragile, and we should take it. And we should try to extend the window while this opportunity lasts. Yeah, so that was a short intro talk. It was mostly based on a position paper that I wrote with Mikita Poliesny, and we were advised by Bowen Baker, Vlad Mikulik, and Rohan Shah. We have a lot of time for questions, and I'm happy to take a lot of questions.
Okay, thanks very much, Tomek. Let's give Tomek a round of virtual applause. And yeah, we'll open the floor to questions. Okay, Sebastian immediately jumped with a question. Please go ahead, Sebastian. We cannot hear you, Sebastian. Okay, maybe that was a mistake. Any other questions from the audience? Yeah, go ahead, Rich.
Hello. Yeah, I guess you mentioned the drift from legible English in O3's reasoning. Do you have any insights into what caused this drift and the decrease in monitorability of the COT in OpenAI's reasoning models?
Yeah, that's pretty unclear. Yeah, so I don't think that we have thoroughly investigated that, what exactly was the cause here. I can maybe say, like, conceptually why we might expect this. So it's basically like you start with a model being very close to this natural language prior, and then you start doing things to it. You start perturbing weights a little bit, and nothing in your training objectives puts any pressure for COT to look natural language-like. So you are just moving the model in some direction parameter space that is indifferent to COT looking English-like. And you put a bit of other optimization pressures, like you put some pressure for COT to be shorter and more compressed. And that would result in this kind of drift away from English.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I guess I remember reading the paper from, I think, Burroughs about like and the kind of follow up that you mentioned about the COT monitorability being a fragile opportunity for AI safety. And it seemed not that long after that the COT of O3 was less legible. Is it the case that, I don't know, within OpenAI there's not as much actual mobilization of people to care about maintaining a COT monitorability in reasoning models as a result of the early work saying that it's a fragile opportunity?
I think that there is a lot of bias at OpenAI, and most people care about this a lot. So I'm not that worried about that. Also, yeah, I feel like this, how illegible our COT is often overemphasized. Like, I feel like I could sit and read COTs of our models, and I would be able to understand what they are talking about in almost all of the cases. So it's kind of just like getting used to someone's weird accent or weird dialect. It takes some getting used to, but you do get used to it.
Interesting. And do you think it's plausible that COT monitors using other models would be able to learn to interpret, even if it's less legible to humans at first glance, without knowing deeply the kind of linguistic traits of the reasoning models, that you could train a monitor to be really good at it?
Yeah, I think so. So like in principle, this COT is clearly legible to the very model that is using this COT. And you could use this very model as a monitor. Then in principle, it should be able to understand everything that's happening there. So it's kind of like an empirical question, whether it will actually work in practice. But there are strong reasons to believe that even if your COT drifts far away from English into some kind of weird, entirely invented pidgin language, maybe you can just use the same model as the monitor, and it's going to be able to translate it back to English.
Yeah,
provided that has monitor model is well aligned and you trust it.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess in general, using another instance of the same model opens up to a lot of other threat models around collusion and not being able to trust the monitor. I guess there's the untrusted monitoring stuff that maybe can introduce some safeguards against that kind of thing. Really quick follow up, because I know I've asked a few. I guess, do you think it's feasible that another model could learn to interpret this chain of thought, and then you can potentially not be forced to use another instance of the same model, or maybe a previous generation of the same model or something, to sort of know how to understand the COT? Do you think it's feasible that, for example, like a Anthropic model can understand OpenAI's reasoning model's chain of thought?
Yeah, so there is maybe an easy version of this question and a hard version. The easy version is for current models. And here I think, sure, I would say that even I can understand those COTs. So it doesn't seem like a problem. I feel like Claude would zero shot to understanding them. You can right now it's more like models have a few words that they use in idiosyncratic way, like disclaim or illusions are like funny words that they like to use.
Yeah.
But you can infer from context what a model means by saying disclaim. So the hard version of this question is for future models that would drift far away from English. And then it's maybe a bit less clear whether you could just zero shot what a model means. But I've seen proposals as framing this problem as basically unsupervised machine translation. There was a bunch of work on this topic in the NLP community. It's basically a problem of training a translator model if you don't have a parallel corpus of like some text and translation. Maybe you just have a bunch of data in foreign language that you don't understand. Still, there is a bunch of statistical structure in it, and maybe you can ground it in something like actions. And then maybe you can just, without any labels, infer the meaning of words and syntactic constructions.
Yeah, cool. So, are you claiming that you understand what O3 meant by disclaim, disclaim, disclaim vantage in that very famous excerpt from Apollo and OpenAI's anti-scheming paper?
Yeah, like roughly. Yeah, I think in that context, disclaim means something like to pretend to not do something or to disengage.
And the repetition of the same token?
Oh, that's another thing. That feels more like a glitch or like a model doing something weird.
Okay, interesting. I think that there's more I could ask, but I've asked a lot, and there are other people with raised hands. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rich. Yeah, go ahead, Bruno.
Have you checked whether this idiolect behavior persists when prompting in other languages than English, for example, in Polish? Because I think English is biased towards being a second language, and the model is likely to simulate someone who does not have English as their first language, and I think it would be less likely to switch to other languages if it's prompted in a less popular language.
Yeah, so our models by default do COT in English, and that's a strong prior for them. Even if you instruct them to do COT in another language like Polish, they would either not do this and just stick to English, or maybe they would do like a bunch of thinking in English to only then switch to Polish. Yeah, I don't think it would have a strong effect. Definitely it would be confounded by kind of a very out of distribution COT that is in Polish and not English. I'm not sure whether it answers your question.
It probably doesn't. I was just asking because different languages have have different properties in the prior.
Yeah, do you have a follow-up question, or should we move on?
No.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, go ahead, Marcel.
Okay, so you mentioned the paper OpenAI about like problems with trying to optimize COT to get rid of unwanted behavior and obfuscate this behavior in result. And so, if COT monitorability is fragile, do you think that trying to like not optimize this chain of thought, this is something that would work out as a voluntary commitment among the labs, or do you think that this should be like a target of regulation, which would like prohibit certain techniques?
Yeah, that seems to be unclear. So right now it is kind of effectively a voluntary commitment, like at least some variant of it, of not using strong and direct optimization pressure. I think right now all three major frontier labs kind of declare not doing it. And then the question whether we should codify it into some kind of voluntary commitments or regulations and open one. There are some trade-offs involved. It might be that we would be better off using alignment methods that leverage COT. Maybe we should scale up something like deliberative alignment or directly use process-based supervision, which could improve alignment at a cost of hardware monitorability. And it seems like an open technical and policy question, whether we should do this. So yeah, like my tentative answer would be that it's kind of unclear. Right now, it seems like probably a good idea, but we mostly wanted to start a discussion about this rather than give a very specific recommendation what people should be doing.
Okay, thank you.
Right, Adam.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to ask you if anyone has anyone checked, maybe did like probing on the chain of thought to see if it's possible to, or like check the accuracy of detecting some fraud or some misalignment, just to actually see how effective it is to just train a model, probably a simple one, that would classify certain chain of thought as harmful or not. And there is also a follow-up, so I'll start with it already. Do you think that it might be also beneficial to check the values of other logits along the way when the generation was happening? Maybe it could reveal some more context, especially in the context of the model, drifting away from English and doing like its own thing. Maybe it's some kind of way it's hiding some information, right, like that. Yeah, so that was two questions.
Yeah, so what you described is basically chain of thought monitoring, and there was a lot of research on COT monitors as an effective measure against misalignment. My colleagues from UKAC 2 days ago have published like a paper on our red teaming exercise, where we basically just check, like, if you prompt a model to accomplish a malicious task in some environment, how good is a COT monitor at catching this? and how good is the model at going past this monitor. Yeah, so there's a lot of research on that. And I would expect this kind of COT monitoring to be our most effective mitigation against misalignment in the short term. And regarding your questions about logits, I don't have a good sense. I wouldn't maybe expect looking at other logits to be that useful on top of just reading a COT. It's like typically every subsequent logit is quite well determined, but what happens before? Yeah, and also like I wouldn't like to leave you with an impression that this idiosyncratic language is a big problem for us. I don't think it is. I think we have larger problems. I think that COT is legible enough for us to understand and to monitor right now.
Okay, thank you. Could you just another follow-up? What is the biggest problem then, if not that, in your regard?
So like on a bigger picture, it would be us losing COT monitorability through moving to other architectures. And maybe in the short term, there's also like a problem of getting many nines of reliability. Like right now, we maybe get false negative rate of like 1%-ish. But if we would really like to deploy those agents in high-stake situations, we would like this to be like 0.1 or 0.01. And it's kind of an open question how to get there. So like COTs are sometimes unfaithful, and sometimes a model will tell you in COT that it's going to do one thing, but it's doing another. And sometimes COT monitors are being fooled. So there is still like a bunch of work trying to make them very reliable. And this is probably just like boring technical work.
Okay, thank you very much. That answers all my questions. Thank you.
Thanks. Just very quickly, the paper that you mentioned from AC, is that the asynchronous control paper?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm putting it in the chat in case anyone wants to check it out from the UK AC. Okay, Sebastian, go ahead, please. Hello, Sebastian, are you there? Okay, let me ask a question myself in the meantime. You had this graph, right, where you were saying that activations can only pass downstream through the token space, right? But you remember the coconut paper from Meta from like a year ago?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so basically for those of you that don't know, there was this paper about a year ago from Meta called Coconut. I think it stood for Continuous Chain of Thought, and they basically taught LLMs to reason in latent space rather than through the token text space, right? And I was just wondering if have you seen this topic being picked up a lot by researchers over the next 12 months? Because I really haven't seen anything. Like I saw the original Coconut paper, and then people haven't seemed to have picked it up.
Yeah, so there were some follow-ups, some follow-up papers, and definitely there are people working at this. So far, based on what was published, it doesn't seem to work amazingly well. Like, you need to train this architecture for this capability of recurrent reasoning. And it like kind of works a bit, but it's definitely nowhere near the reasoning capabilities of models doing COT now. And it's maybe just like an open question how well people will manage to make it work and whether it's going to be adopted. And that's unclear.
Yeah, so to tie this back to, I think it was Marcel that asked this. Do you think that this should be like, voluntarily outlawed or something like that?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like, if you ask me personally, I would be somewhat sympathetic to this view, but there is also a bunch of trade-off involved. So it's hard to say.
Can you elaborate on the trade-offs? Do you mean competitive pressures?
Yeah, so one is competitive pressures, like Western AI companies are in a race mode, and that feels somewhat justifiable by geopolitics. And another is that maybe we will manage to make a lot of progress in white box methods. And maybe we will manage to ensure monitorability through other ways. Maybe there are some hybrid architectures that do compressed reasoning by default, but then they are able to decode it back very faithfully. Or maybe you can have architectures that sometimes do compressed reasoning and sometimes do legible reasoning. Yeah, so there's a lot of like space in between. And one thing that I am a bit worried about would be locking into commitments that don't scale with capabilities and new challenges and new opportunities in AI safety.
Okay, good. I'm very tempted to ask what you mean by that. Can you like shortly elaborate?
Yeah. So basically, the things that I mentioned. Maybe you can have hybrid architectures. Maybe you can ensure monitorability through other means than COT.
Okay.
Like, I am not married to COT monitoring. I am married to the general problem of being able to safely deploy highly capable AI agents. And the important thing is whether we can somehow monitor those agents. Maybe we will have better ways soon.
Okay, fair enough, thanks. Sebastian, are you there with us? Hello, are you there? Okay. Anybody else has any questions towards the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so while Sebastian works on the mic, because I saw him trying to unmute, it must be a hardware issue. So yeah, a lot of what I wanted to ask about has been covered already. So I would expect that, like COT seems to be improving the performance after the training has been done, and that's why it's used. And it's, I think, the number of tokens in the reasoning used by the models has grown. And that's the tokens that well, I'm not sure about the pricing policy, but I think that's what the consumers pay for, while the pre-training is an upfront cost for the companies. But yeah, I would expect that if we come up with a better architecture, something like Jakub has described would happen. So all of the reasoning is internalized in the model, and it's not interpretable, and we have the problem that we thought we will have in 2014 or 18, that all of it is latent space and happening in activations. And we could stop that. Let's assume that we have this regulation and that you have to have COT, and we can optimize, of course, like different ways to have it in legible English. So we could like have some loss function that makes the model stick to legible English, whatever that means. Maybe that's a perplexity as measured by a weaker model or something like that. But my question, because that wasn't the question so far, my question is whether, because as you said, not all the tasks require the COT reasoning tray. So should we be worried about some steganography? I know that like from Jan and Anna Bentley work, when you're fine-tuning on one model on an output of another model, you can transfer preferences like the old paper. So I'm curious if the reasoning trace like chain of thought could contain some steganography, like transfer of preferences, or like still in some way encode the goals, the hidden goals of the model. If it doesn't store it in the internal activations in the latent space, then it still might use something that seems like legible English language, but for the model, it's a way to encode something more, some preferences, or scheming, etc.
Okay, let me try to restate the question the way I understand it. So one question here was, when you do fine-tuning of one model on COT sampled from another model, can you transfer some preferences of this first model? And here I would expect that, like basically you'd have something like subliminal learning, even if those preferences are not expressed verbatim in those COTs. I would expect some transfer. I don't think that it is a major worry right now. Like, we don't just look for models on the street to sample COTs from them. But maybe in the future it would be an interesting attack vectors on open source models. And the second question was about steganography, which I would understand more as having some kind of hidden content in COT and reasoning, and like having the plain text reasoning, but in parallel having a second reasoning trace that is somehow encoded in the first one in a way that's illegible to an external observer, but legible for the model doing the COT, so that the model can leverage this hidden reasoning. It is possible in principle. I think there's been a bunch of papers trying to elicit this capability, and it doesn't work like amazingly. At least there is a large drop in performance compared to doing legible reasoning. And it's also maybe hard for a model to start doing that like on its own. So typically when we ask a model to hide something in COT, it would be like a model would start a COT with, oh, there is this hidden information. I need to hide it in COT. I need to make sure that a reader would not understand this. Okay, so from now on, let me try to hide this. And then it's still very monitorable. I guess the worrisome thing would be if a model would have this all plan and this steganographic encoding without verbalizing it. But that in turn requires a bunch of latent reasoning about how to encode something in COT. And that's kind of also tough. So yeah, to sum up, it is something to be worried about. I think that current models are pretty bad at this. So it's not on the top of our priority list.
Okay,
does that
thanks.
answer your question?
Yeah. I think I also, to wrap up my question, I remember the like faithfulness research that was like 2 years ago almost, and yeah, it also showed that it doesn't the reasoning trace isn't typically used for models to do some, like they don't use the extra tokens to do some like hidden reasoning, but yeah, I also think that for now they're pretty open about what they're thinking about, and yeah, as you mentioned, they can be caught red-handed having bad thoughts. So for now, we shouldn't be worried. But I was curious if we should expect something like this arising like in the future. Yeah, you answered my question. Thanks.
Thanks. So Sebastian had some mic problems, it seems, and he's asking the questions in the chat. Let me read them out for you, Tomek. What are the disadvantages of enforcing a legible COT, for example, enforcing English grammar?
So I guess one disadvantage in terms of capabilities would be that it's sort of an additional constraint on the model that would maybe force a model to do longer COT. So it's more like when you want to solve a problem, maybe you are more efficient if you can have your own scratchpad and just like jot down some notes for yourself in a way that's mostly legible to you. But it's a larger task if you want to have a nice notebook that you can show to your teacher and a teacher would understand it. So that's one thing. One reason why enforcing legibility would probably be a small capabilities hit. And then another in terms of alignment. One disadvantage would be that you might be optimizing COTs for looking legible as opposed to being legible. Namely, whatever metric you would use for legibility, a model could try to maximize it while still actually using words in somewhat idiosyncratic ways, but just in a way that's not very visible to your metric. Yeah, so I guess those two would be main reasons. But like still in practice, we do start with a prior of legible COT. And we don't do enough RL just now to move far away from this prior. So I would say that right now we mostly get legibility for free.
Okay, thanks. And sorry, the second question is of a different nature. I don't know if you want to take it, Tomek, so feel free not to answer it. But Sebastian is asking, what made you switch from Anthropic/AC to OpenAI?
Oh man, yeah, it was a bunch of reasons. The biggest reasons were personal. I wanted to move from London to San Francisco, and I wasn't able to relocate with UKAC.
I see. Okay, let's leave it at that. Any last minute questions? Please be quick because we're running out of time. Okay, it seems there are no further questions. In this case, thank you, Tomek, for sticking with us through all these questions for almost like 40 minutes, I think. We appreciate it. Let's give Tomek a virtual round of applause once again. So for your information, Tomek, what we usually do is we start a thread on our Slack. I think you are on our Slack because I checked. I don't know if you check it ever, but it's fine. So I can probably ping you. I would appreciate it if you could check it out maybe like within 2 days or something and answer if there are any remaining questions. Yeah, and to the audience, thanks everyone for coming once again. And this is our last seminar before the Christmas break. I hope you all have a good break, and I'm putting the link to the next seminar in the chat right now. It's going to be on the 8th of January, same time, same place, online by Bartosz Cewiński about MechInterp. So yeah, have a good Christmas break, everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks, Tomek. Yeah, see you in the new year.